Hey everyone, it is Sunday, July 24th. The time is 12:56 p.m. and the temperature is around 22 degrees Celsius. And that was the intersection of Dundas Street East and Broadview Avenue. And I am currently heading west along the north side of Dundas Street. And last week, I started recording a walk right there at the southwest corner of Dundas and Broadview. And for this one, I'll be heading west along Dundas and finding my way into downtown. Then at River Street, I think I'll head south down to Shuter. And then I'll walk west along the entire length of Shuter Street. And that'll bring me over to Yonge Street. There's the 505 Dundas streetcar. That'll be turning north at Broadview and heading up to Broadview Station. And there's this storage facility for the bike share program just here on the right. And when I left my home, it was raining pretty good. And I was kind of hoping to catch some of the rain, but it seems to have let up. There's the Toronto Facilities Management Division building with a posted speed limit of 2 kilometers. I think they meant kilometers per hour. There's a fairly high-end car dealership, Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin, Land Rover, and Jaguar. I do have my umbrella on me in case it starts to rain. There, you could jump onto the Don Valley Parkway heading north. And that flanks the east side of downtown. There's a look north up the DVP, and right next to it is the Don River. I don't know if the camera picks this up or not, but you can see some rain dropping onto the river off in the distance. So it has just started to rain quite lightly. And there is another rather high-end car dealership. There's a rail corridor and Bayview Avenue, which is southbound only for this stretch. They've got that two-way bike lane on the east side for that part of Bayview. And I'm kind of tempted to just stick to Dundas Street here. I think it's probably the more interesting route over to Yonge. Although I'm pretty sure I've recorded this stretch of Dundas somewhat recently. And that's what happens when you leave your bike unattended for too long. I'm sure all that person had to do was blink and their bike was stripped bare. And we have arrived at River Street. And that is the Regent Park neighborhood straight ahead. And just to the north of here is Cabbagetown. Sidewalk closed. Looks pretty open to me. And my guess is this row of older homes is about to be turned into a condo. I don't know if they have heritage status or not, in which case they'll have to preserve at least the facades of the homes. And a look into the Regent Park redevelopment area. Some of the areas have not yet been redeveloped. So I think from Shuter and River here to Yonge Street, it'll be about 2.5 kilometers. Bus will be heading up to Broadview Station. And the Corktown neighborhood is just to the south of here. And this is now west from the very eastern end of Shuter Street. So I don't really know how you would classify Shuter. It's not quite a major east-west street. It's not really a smaller side street either. It's somewhere in between. And they've got this big sports field complex here. Regent Park itself is just to the north of here. That's just on the north side of Dundas, but this whole area is considered the Regent Park neighborhood. And this was all a social housing project that was developed after the Second World War. What happened was in the early 1900s, it became something of a slum district. So the city hatched a plan to create a big community here. So from the late 40s to 60s, a lot of public housing was built here. And while it was initially successful, it eventually started to fall into a state of decline. And things like crime in the neighborhood increased. But in recent years, this multi-phase redevelopment plan has been taking place. And it's a mix of market rate condos and public housing. Those that lived in the older social housing aren't being displaced. They're being offered units under the same terms in newer but smaller units. I think phase 3 of 5 is just finishing up. You can see a lot of the older buildings to the north of here. Cabbagetown used to extend all the way down here. That's why you see a lot of these older Victorian style homes on these residential streets. But back before World War II, this was a rather working class area. And a lot of those homes weren't maintained and often fell into a rather shocking state of disrepair. And a similar project to the north of here in St. Jamestown was erected. And there's another social housing project just to the west I'll be walking past, and that's Moss Park. These are certainly some lovely looking homes though. And there is Nelson Mandela Park Public School, although I don't believe that is the main entrance any longer. There's been extensive renovation, and I think you would enter it from the other side. I've always found walking along Shuter to be a rather quiet experience. And here's a road trek 190. I think that stands for 19 feet. When I was growing up, my dad used to have one of these. And on the right is a community rec center, as well as the Regent Park Employment Services and a child care center. And there you can see a sign labeling this area as Corktown, which would be everything to the south of here. I'm not seeing any heritage plaques on these homes, although sometimes the city just designates an entire block or area as heritage. And one great thing you'll notice is there are protected bike lanes. And these are some old workers' cottage style homes. And you'll see these all throughout Toronto, but you'll see a lot of them on the east side, particularly in Cabbagetown. And here's Parliament Street. And a look back at Regent Park. And now it's time to walk through Moss Park. Though I think there's a bit more going on the north side of Shuter here. There are the Moss Park Apartments. And that's a series of 3 large community housing towers. And they were erected in the 60s. Although unlike Regent Park, as well as Alexandra Park, I don't think there's any redevelopment plans for Moss Park. These have got to be over 100 years old. And just on the other side of the Moss Park Apartments is Queen Street. And this here is Berkeley Street. And Berkeley continues just on the other side of the Moss Park Apartments. I'm not sure why they chose to break it up. Looks like there's a clear path through there. And the same is the case for Ontario Street. I guess he's digging for treasure. And this is the second person in a row on the mobility device going the wrong way in the bike lane. So that was Ontario Street. And this is Seton Street.
That's funny, I always thought that they the e-bikes now, right? You go ride them on the sidewalk and turn around. Yeah, they're trying to figure out what the sound is. Make it sound like
And here comes Sherbourne Street. And Moss Park itself will be just up here on the left. And just to the south is a somewhat notorious intersection of Queen and Sherbourne. And in about a decade, that'll be home to a subway station as part of the Ontario line. And Sherbourne also has pretty good bike lanes on it. South. And there's a number of shelters and outreach services and a safe injection site in this area. I think he's trying to score a donation from a passerby. In the last few years, it was hard to walk by here without seeing a large homeless encampment in this part of Moss Park. And a lot of these row houses here on the right will date back to the mid-1800s. And coming up is George Street, another street that gets broken up by Moss Park. And just to the north of here on the right is the Seton House, a very large homeless shelter, one that was slated to be closed a few years ago. I think it's seen its life extended thanks to the pandemic. That's just up that way on the right.
Yeah.
Apparently on the right was an old building called Walnut Hall that dated back to the 1850s. There's no one coming up behind me in the bike lane. Here's Jarvis Street. And a sign that this area is gentrifying. There's the future Manga Hotels, Hyatt Place, and Residences. Right across the street from the Moss Park Armory. That serves several regiments of the Canadian Armed Forces. And there's the Salvation Army. And this is Mutual Street. And coming up will be St. Mike's Hospital. That's renowned for its trauma center. It also has an orthopedic clinic on house, or in-house. I've been reading that the various emergency rooms in the city have been overwhelmed to the point that Toronto Western almost had to close its yesterday as they couldn't find an adequate number of nurses. And these homes here date back to 1850.
Like in the scooter style. I bet you that's new. Like they're making a lot.
And here is Church Street. Mike's Cathedral Basilica. It's a pretty impressive looking building. That is not where Church Street gets its name. That is derived from the St. James Cathedral to the south of here. There's the Metropolitan United Church lurking just to the south of here. And that was Bond Street that I just crossed. And here's St. Mike's on either side of the street. The emergency ward is just over there. And here's Victoria Street. I did a walk up here last week. There's Massey Hall across the street. That opened in 1894, and it was recently closed for a few years for, I think, something like a $500 million renovation. And there's a remaining Fran's restaurant right in the base of the Pantages Hotel. There's a look over at Massey Hall. And there is O'Keefe Lane, which you could take up to Dundas Square. And they've got Yonge Street closed here. I really have no idea why. Did I just accidentally stumble upon a festival? Well, this is neat. I think my next video just planned itself. I'm gonna go south and figure out what this is and make my way north up through it. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this walk starting at Dundas and Broadview, making my way west into downtown, and then all the way over to here at Shuter and Yonge. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below, and if you wish to support the channel, there are links to my Patreon and YouTube channel membership in the description, and there's now a super thanks button appearing below these videos. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.